screen. Should I be able to get my PowerPoint up? I can. Look at that. She says. So spring into action.
Yeah, it's coming up now.
Can you see that?
I can see that, yeah.
Oh, you can see it. Okay, it's just I can't see it, so that's fine. It's always the thing with Zoom. You never know quite if you can see it, who can see it, and everything else. So,
Quite.
yeah, I mean, what I was going to do was obviously going to talk through this and then just obviously take questions in relation to what I was talking about, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, as we've said previously in what Sharon was talking about there, we very much look to contextualize English, maths, and digital skills within the foundation year of T levels. And what we found is we try and make it so that it's real life situations, and we tend to find that that works much better. So if I go to English first, so English study skills, we really find that learners coming to us now need to develop those academic writing skills. And so what we do is try and embed it within sessions with some sort of little activities to get them engaging in that. One that we've done quite successfully is the recognizing formal and informal language. So I've got that in a sheet that I can share with you as a starter activity or something just to even sort of make it into a matching activity. There's all these sort of ways to engage the learners, which I always think is really important. So yes, as I say, it's on a sheet format, but I often will, cut those things up, put them in a group, get them to engage in it, get them to talk about it a little bit more, so you can extend those activities. So in that, we've got things like obviously formal language, so acquire, informal might be get, um, formal, observe, informal, to point out something. So just those terminology that we actually might use when we're writing a formal report or a formal account of something. And we, as I say, develop our learners' skills in that. It's something that we go back to on a regular basis as well, so that is scaffolding on their learning. Because often, you do an activity, they might sort of, remember things from that, but actually then when you see in their academic writing, you realize that they've sort of forgotten some of the things you show. Again, I don't know, formal could be demonstrate, informal could be show. So it's just that type of language that we want our learners to be developing, ready for moving on to T levels, where obviously the academic writing at level 3, you're expecting them to be able to produce information in a format. We do a lot of reading of academic text. So for the legal, finance and accounting, that means accounting, either textbook or an up-to-date article. So if something's happened, I was going to just say, obviously, the budget this week is obviously, so keeping it current as well. I think it's really important that our learners are aware of things that are going on. So, obviously keeping up to date with the news yourself is important, but also making sure that those learners are aware that things that are currently happening. So it might be, as I say, an article or a book. We'll get them to read it, have a look at the type of text that's used within it, draw things out of it that we can then use for discussion topics. Communication is again a really important aspect of those literacy skills. I think we will continue to see learners coming through that haven't necessarily had the opportunity to develop their communication skills in the last few years. And so getting any opportunity to look at an article together as a group, talk about it, pull out any techniques that are in it, is it formal language? Is it informal language? I think is really important. And then moving on from that, we'll get them to practice writing about a particular topic. So, what that whatever that might look like in relation to where you are in the current curriculum that you're delivering, then applying what they've learned from doing those techniques and building on that information. Um, those literacy skills continual coming into all your lessons all the time. I think, it's sort of important that you look at things and really enjoy language and reading and looking at different ways that you can discuss this with the learners as well. Getting them to incorporate different ideas as well. I was listening to something that recently came up about a guy called MC Grammar. I don't know if you heard of him, Paul, at all.
I haven't,
MC
no.
Grammar. No. So he's doing quite a lot of work with young children about reading, but actually making it into raps, if you like. So remembering things. So when we obviously, look at the way learners revise and things like that, I think sometimes, it's thinking of the bigger picture and thinking about actually what appeals to that learner. Can you tailor your revision to a particular type of literacy? Can you incorporate anything like that into it? So that's what we look at when we're doing those English. What we then do when they move on to study skills, sorry, when they move on to T level, is we teach them as study skills. We get our English team involved as well. So it's a very team approach, looking at holistic learning so that the learners understand that it's an important part. This also prepares them if they're going to go on to university because, you never stop learning. Study skills are still there when you're at university.
Mm.
And I think that's what we need to really put across to our learners. Just because they've got a 3 or whatever it might be in English, you're never going to stop learning and you're always going to explore those aspects of it. Any questions on what I've said about there, Paul? Anything you want me to expand on further?
I think the oracy thing is interesting because there's a bit of a move towards that. So, as I've picked up as well that the pandemic years have been had a big impact on people's confidence and just the an ability to speak out. So, foundation year does provide a really good opportunity to rehearse those sorts of things in a safe way and develop those skills. So, yeah, I wonder what you do around that kind of around the sort of spoken elements and
Yeah, yeah. We really have recognised that, and we start off with presentations from when learners start with us.
hmm,
So whatever we're covering, we will every so many weeks say, okay, you're going to present. That might be a group, that might be individually. Obviously, we tend to start off with a group to start off with. That might be just presenting back the poster that they've done. So they've done a poster on whatever topic it might be. So say we've given them an article, and they've got that article, they've pulled out bits of information about it, and rather than just verbally talking it back, they've produced a poster on it. We then get them to present that poster to their peers. And again, you'll find that some students initially are quite confident and they take the lead on it, and some people automatically hold back. What we then do is obviously build on that confidence. So then those ones that are not so confident initially, they might just say one sentence, whatever it might be, just building on that confidence, building up their self-esteem to be able to communicate effectively. And we find that works really well, but you need to introduce it straight away at the start of the academic year. There is
yeah,
no point suddenly in January saying to those learners, oh, and now you're going to do presentations, because if they've not done it for 3 months, they won't want to do it at that particular time. So in our planning, we plan those in that they're going to be doing presentations, say, every so many weeks, is really important, I think.
yeah, agreed.
And, depending on the size of your cohort, you might have, sort of groups of 4, groups of 5, it really does depend, you know, what um, what the group dynamics are like. I think, that's when it's really important to know your learners.
Yeah, I think also in the with foundation year, you've got that possibility to do kind of enhanced diagnostic period, and
Yeah.
this is a really good opportunity to put English and maths and digital in context and to get a good
Mm,
starting point. And I think it's some places do projects, don't they, for like a
mm,
diagnostic project.
mm,
I think what it is, what's important is to recognize that it's more than sticking them through BKSB or whatever it
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
that you might do. There's an enhanced opportunity here to really get to the nitty-gritty. And then with English, I think also some sort of quick wins is vocabulary, isn't it? Technical
Yeah.
vocabulary. That's always that's a quick win. I come from a literacy background. Adult literacy is my
Mm,
sort of domain expertise, and so we looked at stuff at text level, at sentence level, and at word level, and I think those are quite handy distinctions when you're thinking about how you're going to contextualize the vocabulary. Clearly, you're working at word level. Whole text
mm,
analysis is text level stuff. The grammar sits into the
mm.
sentence level. So sometimes thinking of it in that kind of way can be really helpful too.
Yeah, we always make sure that sort of, that technical vocabulary again it comes in September. So again, it's, not sort of not avoiding it early on, but bringing it in and then explaining it, going through it, because that's what they need moving forward. That then obviously helps with the way they communicate. That then helps with the way they write, and we do little like spelling things as well sometimes, little
Mm.
spelling tests as such, if you want to call them, the old-fashioned spelling tests. But again, because sort of if it's words they've not come across before, they can be quite technical words. So again, just supporting them in that aspect as well, I think is really important, and not being afraid to get it wrong. I think we always say to our learners that you're learning. Don't be afraid to get it wrong, but have a go at spelling, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
because it's going to be what you'll need moving forward. And then they get confident, and all of a sudden, those words that they might have used, those short words, suddenly become slightly longer. They sort of have a different vocabulary, and I think that's an important aspect of that foundation year, really building on those students' confidence in using the spoken word and their vocabulary, and in the
Yeah.
sense that they need those sort of challenges really to sort of challenge themselves as well, to sort of see what they can achieve. But yeah, we do definitely find that you anything like that, start it at the beginning of the academic year, because then they're just in the normal format of, okay, this is what we do, this is what every so many weeks we have a little spelling test, or we do a presentation, or whatever that might be. And I
Yeah.
think that gives the students confidence.
It does, and doing it in the context makes it meaningful, and it's away from then, I didn't want to do English and maths.
Yeah.
This is why I came to do, a vocational thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
it's good to hear that you've got a good relationship between your academic staff and your vocational staff, and that there's that, because I think that's really key to make contextualization work, and that two-way communication and a two-way learning process
Yeah.
is key there. What came into my yeah. Do you, when you're doing your curriculum planning, is there links with the sort of what's happening in the GCSE resits and what you might do, what you might contextualize?
Yes, absolutely. As I say, we work really closely, and I think that's been a real key to what we do is we actually involve our maths and English teams in everything, if you like. So we make sure that we speak to them about things that we're doing in the classroom. Do they marry up with what they're going to be doing in their GCSEs? What are they focusing on, whether it's question 5 or whatever it might be in the GCSEs? How could we support in curriculum as
Yeah,
well? So it very much is that sort of, if you like, triangulated approach with the learner, and then obviously the various teams are all sort of joining together to give that holistic learning opportunity to those particular learners. And then talking about strategies that the English team might be using, how can curriculum support with that? So yes, I think that joint approach is crucial. Also, the learners then don't see it as, I'm doing my core, I'm doing my English, I'm doing my maths. It all suddenly becomes joined together. And I think that's a really
absolutely.
important
I do,
approach to it.
yeah. I absolutely agree. I had in the past, it would be things like maybe some vocational tutors in the past would have said, "Oh, you got to go off and do your English now, or you got to go off and do your maths. I know you don't want to be there,"
Yeah,
sort of thing. But it's
yeah,
about
yeah.
that whole thing working. Lovely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Tell us
Have you
about
got the
some
maths
math.
up on the Yeah, I was gonna say you've got that, you can see that for me, for you see as maths as well, yes?
Yeah.
So, we very much link our maths to job roles as well. So, whatever the sort of, if we're doing the accounting, if they're thinking about being that, in the future, that's their aspiration, then thinking about that particular job role and bringing that into our maths. So it can be things like, obviously, I've just put some activities up there. So looking at YouTube clips, that's obviously a tax. Again, though you can get so much from learning that tax aspect of it, in the sense that there's lots to draw out of that, but it relates to everyday life. Lots of students are going to be getting part-time jobs when they come into college. They might not be paying tax. Why aren't they paying tax? What's the thresholds? This type of thing can immediately contextualize their learning that they're actually doing. So that's quite a nice sort of, either giving them as a sort of flip learning task to look at the YouTube clips first, and then bring obviously to the lesson what they've learned from it, and then doing further activities and building on that foundation of knowledge. Um, Also, talking about group activities, I think maths is a really good opportunity as well to do some group activities, looking at different pay slips, breaking those pay slips down, pulling out different elements of them, doing some calculations. If that person earns £5,000 more, how is that going to affect everything? Um, the resources that Barclays Skills,
Yeah.
um, and Santander do are really, really good. I've used lots of their different activities over the years, whether that's sometimes Santander have some really good PowerPoints you can use, adapt them obviously for your own learning at that particular time. They do also lots of different activities that you can bring to it. So it might be something like some sort of matching games or something of that nature.
Mm.
So they are really good, and they're really good quality resources. So I think with maths, there are lots of resources out there that you can tap into. Barclay Skills, as I say, has been around for a long time, and they're really good. You can also often get guest speakers from the banks, if you approach them, to come in and do something in relation to that. With the legal, finance, and accounting, even things like sort of marketing companies coming in and doing activities with people with learners, sorry, can be really beneficial, because that shows where you can take things in the future.
Yeah.
And I think widening that scope of what aspirations learners have got can be really, really important to give them that um, thought that I can achieve something, I can go on and I can do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's sort of how we link it, and contextualize maths. Again, we work very closely with the maths team. So if they know we're doing something on tax, they will do something on tax too, so it
Mhm.
marries up. Um, and then going forward, for the T levels, our T level students do core maths as an extra GCSE. So
Okay.
again, we show a clear progression from the foundation year. If they achieve that, then they can go on to the accounting T level, and they can do additional um, qualifications alongside that, which again, employers really like. We work closely with employers for their placements as well, and employers really like those extra curriculum activities that we do with them. Those extra challenges that students have to enable them to shine
Yeah.
above other students. And
Yeah.
I think that's the difference, isn't it? Sometimes with the type of courses that you do.
You're developing young professionals, aren't you, at this very early stage? So their language is going to mature. Their numeracy skills are mature and becoming becoming more professional. Foundation is a nice safe space to do that in. I was wondering whether there are sort of like existing little kind of BTEC units that would be, key maths for accounting or whatever it might be that you can kind of dip into for
We
ideas.
use so we, what Yeah, what we do is we use some of the T level resources. We also use some of the AAT resources as well. So the accounting resources that we've got from that. So we might adapt them to the level of our particular learners. What stage they're at with their units as well. We also with our foundation year, we also always do an event. So an event where they have to cost things out. So our current students are doing in about 2 weeks' time. They're going to do a sort of cake sale and a raffle sale. So they are responsible for budgeting for that. So how would you budget for it? What differences does it make if you make this much profit? How's it going to be? So really bringing it to life for them as well, which I think you want to have fun while you're doing these things. You want to engage those learners, but equally how you engage them and how you capture that enthusiasm can be really important in the type of things that you teach them and you actually do. So we always try and do some sort of charity event, but bringing in all those different elements. And obviously, like we've said before, these things cross over. If you're doing a charity event, it incorporates their English, their literacy skills, because they have to get some raffle prizes or whatever that might be. They then have to work out, if they start off with £10 and they spend £10 on ingredients to make those cakes, where are we going with that? So a real contextualization of the learning, and as I say, they enjoy it and they don't realize how much they've learned. It's actually quite nice, because you then talk about your gross profit, your net profit, where how would that be influenced by things.
Yeah.
So absolutely, yes. And again, employers, we work closely with employers. We try and get employers to come in, because so many employers I talk to, they say it's not just about the qualification, it's about those softer skills that you develop with those learners. So a
That's
bit
right.
like you said about the sort of presentation, talking, communication, um, any aspect that you can work with to develop softer skills with learners. They're 16 when they arrive. Uh,
And for employers, you're growing their pipeline as well, in a way. They're getting learners. They'll get prospective employees in that know the values of
yeah.
that organization, how that organization expects people to behave, etc. I really like what you're talking about with this project, the project-based approach. Obviously, we
Mm,
have the employer set project as part of the foundation year, but making sure that it is holistic, I think, is
yeah.
really, really, really valuable. So if they're going to pitch
Yeah.
their idea, that's their presentation skills. If they're taking feedback from a panel on what they've done, that's their listening skills. If they're doing some marketing materials for it, they're making the poster for the cake stand. It's all in there. Someone's building a website, or they're going to do some social media stuff on awareness raising. You've got some digital and English skills going on. So yeah,
Yeah.
that all sounds really, really lovely. One thing also, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm talking a bit too much there, but one
No,
thing
no, you're not.
people have
No.
said before is that if you're approaching you want to always engage with new employers and
Mm,
build that
mm,
build that that sort of pool that you have, and
mm,
oftentimes asking them straight away for have you got any placements might then shut the door, but asking them, have you got any real realia that we can use? Have you got
mm.
any documentation that we can use for our resources, for our reading skills, for our math skills? Is a
Yeah.
lovely way into an employer, and they're often
Yeah.
more than happy to do that. And then that's the start of an ongoing relationship. Then,
Yeah, that's right. We do find that sort of two-way approach is really important. So, like, as you say, approaching them in a different way, maybe saying, our learners are really interested, and sort of, getting that sort of rapport going. We're very lucky here. We have a excellent placement team. So the team work very closely, and then obviously the lecturers cement that, if you like, going forward as well. Obviously, lecturing staff will build up or know they have their own connections, which is always really useful. But the placement team are always looking for new opportunities for our learners to have that experience. And I think, as you said, it's sometimes, approaching it in a different way. Sort of, would you like to speak to our learners, or have you got something you'd like to share with our learners? And then from that, they can meet them, and then often then they'll say, "Oh, I'd really like to work with you. Can we offer them a placement?" And so they're coming to us as opposed to the other way around, which again I think is something that rightly you said there. Sometimes that cold call approach doesn't go well.
yeah, that's brilliant. So with digital, I was thinking about this for the event, thinking, yeah, there are all of these packages, aren't there, that's involved in finance? And you see, you mentioned Sage up there, and I hear ads
Yeah,
for apps to do your tax returns and all that sort of thing. So there must be quite a lot of sort of digital stuff
yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, sort of digital, as we know, it's sort of moving forward at a rapid pace. So it is being aware of those elements of it. We do find that now majority of year 11s don't do GCSE um, IT anymore. That sort of, because it encompasses in lots of elements, but there are some gaps. So often we find now that sort of doing, Excel spreadsheets, for example, they've not seen that before. They come in and, sort of, oh no, I've never done this before.
Mm,
So we're sort of starting right at that very start when they come in to develop those type of digital skills. Yes, they can go on their phone, they can go on TikTok, they can look up YouTube, they can find sort of different apps to go on, but actually some of those basic skills that we would have anticipated 5, 7 years ago that they would have come to us with, we now need to sort of strip that back a little bit and start on those.
mm.
And again, then as sort of saying about like the group activities and looking at pay slips and things like that, what digital tools have we got that could support that? How can we use what we have available to enable learners to develop those skills as well? And again, sort of that's an ongoing thing because what we're doing now, 6 months, a year down the line, there will be other tools available for those particular things as well.
Absolutely. AI is going to make a big difference in things like
AI, yes,
Excel, for
absolutely.
example. You can tell if you tell AI to set you up a sheet how you want it
Yeah.
with whatever formulas. You haven't got to know how to do all the all the formula things.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and I mean that's continue evolving, isn't it, at the moment?
Mm,
And the other thing that I've put there is we often we do. We set a summer project for the learners to compete before they start with us in September. And often in that we will get them to do some research. So again, developing those research
mm,
skills. So and we can talk about that, again, our friend Wikipedia that will come up at the top of a search.
mhm.
Surprisingly, how many learners will go directly to that. So again, talking to them about how we research, why it's important that we use certain sites, and obviously then developing that. So looking at gov.uk, Santander, which I've obviously talked about. Sort of those websites that we need to be using for our own knowledge and developing skills. And so that's what we'll often do. And again, sort of knowing that starting point. So if we set it as a project for the summer, and they start with us when they come in September, or even when they enroll with us, we often get them to bring that along. So we think we've got a starting point for the group. So looking at our cohort, then we can think, okay, we've got X, Y, and Z. These students, know a little bit about research. These students don't. How can we then structure our class? Because sort of it is not amazing, but it's the different schools are different feeder schools that the way obviously it's taught, or sometimes they've not necessarily, depending on what GCSEs they've not necessarily done any particular research anyway.
Mm.
So again, something like those sort of digital skills are really important for our learners to be able to know where to get their information from as well. But
Yeah.
digital can come into our English, it'll come into our maths. um None of these, I think I would say never look at them as sort of separate entities. Always, and things like the project based, the charity events, they're a really good way to encompass all of the elements that we're talking about within English, maths, and digital.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's important to stress to students that you will come across this, you will need to know this, but maybe not just as one thing. You'll be using your other skills as well.
Yeah, it's often also the answer to when they say, what's the point of?" Here's exactly the point of why you learn some algebra, or why you're
Yeah.
doing A, B, and C. This is exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's very good. Sounds like you got some really good, exemplar practice really from the whole kind of contextualization thing. Two things I think I'd add. I mean, for anybody that's not really looked at the NTOs, there's that lovely mapping thing at the end of all of the NTOs, isn't there? So you've got
Yeah.
mapping the development of English, maths, and English and maths and digital too. So it gives you some ideas against the GCSEs, doesn't it, on
Mm,
the
mm,
end of that? So that's really
mm,
worth looking at. And what was my second point? Oh, yeah, I remember now. I absolutely agree with what you said about students and their digital skills. What they tend to know, I think, is that they know 3 or 4 applications really, really well.
mm,
But the wider notion of how you use digital tools to solve a problem is the thing that kind of needs teasing out,
mm.
isn't it?
Yes, yes, definitely. So we've noticed a real change in the knowledge on spreadsheets, which obviously, if you know, for accounting, they don't come with those sort of that knowledge of it. Yes, obviously they might know Word or whatever, so they've been using in that sense, but uh, that is certainly an area that we are going to ourselves be taking forward to develop some more resources in relation to that, because it's a change that we've noticed in our learners.
Yeah, I seem to remember I've used a site before. I think it was the Goodwill Foundation, and
Mm,
they've got some kind of nice self-access digital things around around like the office-based facility, applications and programs. So that's a handy resource to use. I'd also think
mm.
maybe functional skills papers because
Yeah,
you're getting stuff in
absolutely.
context there, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, sort of any I think it's sometimes it's using that sort of wider aspect of what you have available as well, isn't it? And
Yeah,
sort of that's why again, sort of going back to working with the English and maths colleagues is really important as well, because often they've got those access to different things that might just need a little bit of adaptation, but clearly sort of using the teams to know what you've got already as a starting point, I think is
yeah.
really important.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I'll say again, it is a two-way process because I think once your English and maths and digital teams look at a vocational area, they suddenly become aware of things that the students are studying that they didn't perhaps know that they did. So here's an opportunity now to embed further that English and maths stuff. And I think my final thing would be that, and this is also why it's about, why it's so key to link your vocational academic staff, is that you don't learn the English and math skills in a vacuum. Just because you put it in a context, it doesn't mean that somehow by osmosis they understand first principles. You always have to go back to first principles at some point, whether
Yeah.
that's in the resit or whether that's with a tutor that's confident within the class to say, well, here's what's happening here mathematically, and this is what it looks like. But you always
Mm.
do need to have those points where you step out, draw the
Mm.
curtains back like in Oz or something like that, and
Absolutely.
these are the workings here. Show your workings.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yes. And I think it's, then giving them the confidence to sort of be able to take that little bit of knowledge, build on it in either in their English and maths direct lessons or within the core curriculum in the foundation year as well.
Yeah, yeah. And using those skills to solve real life problems, isn't it? Rather than answer sums or,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
it's
definitely.
working through those processes but yeah, lovely stuff. Contextualization is something I've been in and out of in the last kind of, 25 years sort of thing. So it's always great
Mm,
to hear where it's been talked well and being done well, because I
mhm.
sometimes
Yeah.
wonder what's happened over the past 25 years for some of the work that was done. But it's tricky. It's tricky,
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
tricky.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so for participants who are watching watching this a little bit later on,
Mhm,
Steph's going to send us some
mhm,
sort of resources too. So we'll have resources to go along to accompany this kind of conversation. But we have you have your advisors and you can contact. We have an inbox for information if you want to get any further sort of support or help or ideas, and just do make use of us all. We're always really keen to try and find some solutions for you. If we can't find it straight away, we'll always find someone that can help us out. And I will stop the recording. There we go.